Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the Mahabharata. Now, if you aren't familiar, this epic story is massive, literally about 10 times the length of the Iliad and the Odyssey combined. We're going to zoom in on one specific pivotal moment in this gigantic narrative, a moment that cuts through the noise of battle and really forces us to question the nature of power, patience, and absolute integrity. Before we introduce our characters, I want you to ask yourself a question. What would you do if you could just forcefully take back everything that was unjustly stolen from you, right now, today? But, of course, there's a catch. Doing so means breaking a deeply held personal promise, a public vow you made. So would you take the fast, easy path to victory, or would you actually wait? Keep that dilemma in mind as we explore how these legendary figures tackled this exact problem.
Section 1. The Royal Exile.
To really understand this philosophical clash, we've got to look at the incredibly frustrating situation our main character finds himself in. Yudhishthira, the virtuous king, is living out his days totally helpless in the woods. Now, this is a bizarre, almost absurd reality, because he isn't alone in the world. Actually, he has some of the most powerful warriors in the three worlds acting as his patrons. His allies, like Krishna and the Yadavas, are practically invincible. They are fully capable of marching out today, completely obliterating Yudhishthira's enemies, the sons of Dhritarashtra, and taking back his kingdom before dinner. And yet, despite this massive advantage, he sits in the forest, living like a hermit. So why?
Well, the answer to this bizarre situation boils down to just one thing: the vow. This was a strict, binding promise that Yudhishthira accepted and declared during a famous and, honestly, disastrous, high-stakes game of dice. The terms of this vow mandate his current exile and strictly prevent him from claiming the throne until an agreed-upon time has passed. So the only thing keeping him stuck in the forest is his absolute, unwavering commitment to his own word. And, as you can probably imagine, sitting in the mud while holding the keys to ultimate power sets the stage for a massive ideological clash with his allies. They are, understandably, absolutely furious seeing their righteous friend suffer for no practical reason.
Which brings us to Section 2, Satyaki's Call to Arms. Enter a warrior named Satyaki. He really represents the thesis of our debate here, the passionate argument for sheer force and immediate action. Satyaki is not interested in waiting, and he definitely doesn't care for the technicalities of a gambling vow made by a guy who was literally being cheated. He declares, "I shall in my wrath cut off his head with my excellent shafts little inferior to snakes and poison and fire." Satyaki is passionate, he is angry, and he thinks waiting is completely pointless. From his perspective, why suffer in exile when they have the military might to overwhelm their enemies and send them to the god of death right this second? He just wants to sever Duryodhana's head on the battlefield and be done with the whole shebang. And look, he isn't just making empty, emotional threats here. Satyaki backs up his argument with an undeniable roster of legendary warriors, the overwhelming forces of the Vrishnis. We've got Krishna wielding his formidable horn bow, entirely unrivaled in a fight; Pradyumna, whose keen, unbearable arrows cannot be withstood by anyone; Samba, who is irresistible in battle and famously routed the demon Sambara's entire army when he was just a kid. Then there's Satyaki himself, who relentlessly baffles enemies with his excellent weapons, and Aniruddha, who leaves the earth completely covered with fallen foes. Satyaki's point is crystal clear. This army could effortlessly annihilate their enemies like a raging fire burning through vast heaps of dry straw. The power is literally right there in the palm of their hands.
But Satyaki isn't just a brute looking for a brawl. He's proposing a brilliant, highly pragmatic loophole. His strategy for an expedient victory breaks down into 3 clean steps. First, annihilate the Kurus using their superior forces. Second, install a younger royal, Abhimanyu, as a proxy ruler to govern the earth in the interim. And third, allow Yudhishthira to finish his vow in peace in the forest before officially taking over the throne. It is the ultimate technical workaround. Let the army fight the war, secure the kingdom with a proxy, and technically, Yudhishthira never actually breaks his promise of exile. He gets to stay in the woods with a completely clean conscience while his friends do all the heavy lifting. It's an incredibly logical, almost modern political maneuver.
And that leads into Section 3, the Rule of Righteousness. Right as Satyaki builds the seemingly airtight military and strategic case, Krishna steps in. Now, Krishna acts as the philosophical synthesis here. He totally validates Satyaki's tactical assessment. He agrees they have the overwhelming power to win today, but he points out a fatal flaw in Satyaki's pragmatic loophole. Krishna says,
Yudhishthira would never accept the sovereignty of the earth unless it were won by the prowess of his own arms. You see, Yudhishthira's rigid adherence to his principles, his absolute refusal to renounce the rules of his caste out of pleasure, fear, or covetousness, well, it simply won't allow him to accept a kingdom won by someone else doing the dirty work. He won't take a handout, and he certainly isn't going to use a technical loophole to bypass his own moral code.
This brilliantly illustrates the core dialectical contrast of our whole explainer. On one side, we have Satyaki's way of force, an expedient victory through a proxy war, prioritizing reclaiming sovereign power above all else, and being perfectly willing to bend the rules to achieve what everyone agrees is a completely justified outcome. But on the other side, we have Yudhishthira's way of duty. This demands absolute personal accountability in warfare, prioritizes truth and caste rules, and requires the strict fulfillment of the exact terms of the vow, with zero loopholes. This is the ultimate clash, right? Achieving a justified outcome by any means necessary versus suffering through a strict, unwavering adherence to personal duty.
Section 4. Truth above sovereign power. The debate finally reaches its absolute climax when Yudhishthira himself speaks, delivering his ultimate verdict on whether power should trump morality. In a profoundly measured response to Satyaki's fiery call to arms, Yudhishthira decisively rejects the easy victory. He says, "But to me, truth seems to be the first consideration above that of my sovereign power itself." He states clearly and simply that maintaining his integrity and adhering to the truth is infinitely more important to him than sitting on a throne. He trusts that when the time is actually right and the vow is complete, his allies will be there to defeat their enemies, but he absolutely will not fall off the path of virtue today just because it happens to be convenient. Because Yudhishthira absolutely refuses to strike early, the outcome of this intense gathering is actually quite remarkable. By hour 1, instead of angrily marching off to a world-ending war, there are mutual greetings and a peaceful parting of the Yadu heroes. By day 1, the Yadis return to their homes, fully respecting Yudhishthira's firm decision. And by week 1, the Pandavas are continuing their quiet journey to sacred spots, eventually dwelling peacefully by the beautiful Payoshni river, where Yudhishthira is greeted with deep respect by the wise leaders there. The immediate threat of catastrophic war simply dissolves into a peaceful separation, all because one man refused to compromise his principles for a quick, expedient victory. Everyone agrees to reunite only when the time is truly right. So, is truth really more important than power? As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Yudhishthira chose his vow over a guaranteed immediate kingdom. He had the ultimate firepower at his fingertips, a clever loophole to keep his hands clean, and a completely justified reason to strike. Yet he waited. But what about you? When taking back what is rightfully yours requires compromising your core values and bending your own personal rules, is winning actually worth it? It's a heavy question, and definitely one worth pondering. Thanks for tuning in.